Hello, friend. Welcome back to Coffee Thoughts with Tasia. This is episode 7, and today I've got a really fun episode. I'm going to be taking you through my CrossFit journey, how I got started, my competitive years, and ultimately why I retired. I've got some embarrassing moments to share, like falling off the rig at my very first competition, all the way to what it feels like to stand on top of the CrossFit Games podium. I'm really excited about this episode because I spent a lot of time digging through the archives of old photos and videos of throughout my journey. I was so passionate about competing, and looking back now, that season of my life was even more special than I realized at the time. So let's start at the beginning. If you had told me back in 2013 that I would end up on the CrossFit Games podium, I would have laughed in your face. I found CrossFit in 2013 because a friend invited me to do a partnered scaled competition with them. I had no idea what CrossFit was, but at that point, I was really focused on trying to be quote unquote skinny and struggling with body obsession. At the same time, I also missed the competitiveness of sports after college. I was feeling kind of lost in how to work out at all since I didn't have someone telling me what to do in the weight room. So when this friend invited me to do a partner competition, I thought, why not? When I first walked into Ever Proven CrossFit, I remember expressing my concern about getting bulky. Matt Michaud, the owner at the time, he sat me down and he pulled up this video on YouTube called Beauty and Strength. Do you guys remember that? It had Andrea Ager, Jackie Perez, and other ladies in this video doing rope climbs and on the barbell and just looking so strong and so beautiful. Something in me shifted in that moment and I signed up at Ever Proven CrossFit right away. I knew I wanted to get some training in before this first scaled competition so that I felt prepared going into it. Within a month of signing up, I competed in my first CrossFit Games Open. So this was 2013. So we had 13.1 where we were doing a ascending snatch ladder and burpees. At this time, I don't think I could even get past 105 or whatever it was on the bar. There was also the workout that had push presses, deadlifts, and box jumps. And this was before you had to step down your box jumps. And I remember my calves just being so wrecked. But the competitive atmosphere of the Open had me hooked right away. Alongside that, the community at Ever Proven was incredible. I made instant friends with everybody there, and I just loved going to the gym and being a part of that atmosphere. I remember taking that competitive drive and showing up to my first scaled competition and really feeling that intensity of the workouts. And you know this, even if you've done any CrossFit competition or competition at all, you really can't mimic the feeling of being out on the floor with people watching you work out. I remember PRing my clean there and then also getting to a workout that had rope climbs, and I had no idea how to hook my feet at this point. I'm completely thrashed, have nothing left in me. My grip is fatigued. I keep failing rope climbs. I can't get up the rope. Meanwhile, my partner is trying to carry the weight of getting up on these rope climbs. By the end of the competition, my partner and I tied with another team, and the tie break was announced that it was going to be a max set of pull-ups, and then they were going to combine the two scores. I had recently learned how to kip, and I was excited to put in this max set, determined to give it all I had to win. As I'm doing these pull-ups, completely fatigued from my first real CrossFit competition, I feel my grip just completely go. I'm going into rep 12. I completely peeled off the bar and landed flat on my back in front of everybody who was at this competition. It hurt so bad. I completely knocked the wind out of myself. And not only did it probably bruise my back, it really bruised my ego. The effort was not lost on me, though. We did not win the tiebreak and ended up coming in second. But that experience of pushing myself to the limit was something that was just so exciting and so thrilling. And looking back now, I laugh because it's a simple case of me not knowing my capacity at the time, but just having this crazy passion and drive to win. And I just kept training after that. In early 2014, I somehow got invited to compete at the East Coast Championships. Even though I was completely unprepared to compete at that level, I said yes. I'll never forget the first workout, running and rope climbs. If you didn't finish under the time cap, you were disqualified from the rest of the competition. I was terrified and still somehow had not mastered how to use my feet on rope climbs. But thanks to having a solid foundation of upper body strength from gymnastics, I was able to make it through that first event under the time cap and continue on competing at the event. I remember seeing this epic photo of me trying to finish a workout that had heavy overhead squats. I had terrible positioning in my squat, and meanwhile, Lindsay Valenzuela and Stacy Tovar are sitting there just like cheering me on. And it was such a surreal moment of being out there on the floor, even though I was nowhere near that level. I was willing to just put myself out there and see what happened. And I got to have that experience and be like, okay, I want to come back and be just like them one day. So when the Open came around 1 year later in 2014, I ended up placing 64th in the Northeast. And at the time, they were accepting, I think it was top 40, maybe top 45 went to regionals at this time. And so I wasn't too far off. And that year, when I went to go watch regionals in person, this was when it was outside in Canton, Massachusetts at the Reebok headquarters. And it was such a cool competition. I remember the vibes there were just so fun. Everyone was in the stands just having a great time. We were cheering on all the competitors. It was sunny and beautiful. And I took this picture of the floor when it was empty. And I remember writing in my caption, like, this is my dream. I'm going to be out here one day. I didn't know it yet, but this was the start of something that would completely change the trajectory of my life. Once I knew I wanted to dedicate time to competing, I switched gyms to CrossFit Free to have a more competitive environment. At the time, I was working as a full-time licensed nursing assistant in a nursing home where I would work from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. I would drive an hour to CrossFit Free, work out for a few hours, and then I would drive an hour, sometimes an hour and a half to get home. And that was on cycle of repeat. Eventually, after training for a certain amount of time, I went per diem at my job and started coaching at CrossFit Free. And by the end of 2014, I went full-time as a coach at CrossFit Free. I would literally spend the entire day in the gym. I would get there in the wintertime before the sun came up to coach the 6:30 class, then coach the 9 a.m. class, then I would train from 10 to 12. I would coach the 12, then I would train again from 1 to 4 or so, and then I would take on one-on-ones and on-ramps in the evening and leave when it was dark out to drive home. I was obsessed. I was determined. I loved being at the gym all day long. Looking back sometimes, I'm not sure how I did it, but when you're chasing something you love, there is nothing that's going to stand in the way. And mind you, this is a time before social media was what it is now. So I didn't have sponsors backing me. I was working full time as a CrossFit coach. I was also a part-time sales rep for a supplement company and just grinding to be as fit as possible. 2015 might be my breakthrough year. That year, I was training hard and seeing huge improvements. I added about 50 pounds to my back squat, and my snatch and clean and jerk were finally coming together. I qualified and competed at the Granite Games, ECC, and placed 4th in the Northeast in the Open, earning my spot to regionals. Regionals in 2015 was a roller coaster. I experienced a very intense adrenaline dump on day one. I was in the final heat of women, completely blew up in Randy, came in complete last in my heat. And then the next workout of the day was Tommy V, where I also completely blew up and came in dead last in my heat. That was such a great learning experience to be out on the floor for the first time, to feel what the pressure was like and the excitement. And I ended up climbing my way back up on the next 2 days to finish 12th overall in the Northeast region. I was on fire for 2016. The off season that year of 2016 was wild for me. I came in 5th at the Granite Games, 6th at Wadapalooza, and podiumed at the East Coast Championships. Then came the 2016 Open. I finished 4th in the East again, and my qualification to the CrossFit Games that year was totally a God thing. I remember going into the 2016 season, there was a lot of maybe pressure and talk around me being the dark horse. And this year, I really wanted to shift my mindset as different from 2015, that I really wanted to go in and obviously do my best, but to enjoy the experience, to be confident in the training that I had done and to have fun. Day 1 started out pretty well. And then day 2, I had an event where I totally imploded. It was a workout where it started with, I think it was 105 wall balls, and then it went into like 50 or so pull-ups. When I had done this workout in training, I had done the wall balls unbroken straight into the pull-ups unbroken and finished the workout. And I felt really confident going into it. But this workout specifically was the first time I had done a wall ball on a clear target without anything in front of me before. And so this isn't an excuse for my performance, but I remember getting out there and just like not being able to figure out my spacing to get the wall balls. I had so many no reps on the wall balls. I remember by the time I got to the pull-ups, I was completely wrecked, and I finished like mid 20s in that workout. In that workout specifically, there was a short rest period where we went into another workout that involved hang cleans and pistols. Going into that second part of the workout, I was wrecked and my back completely blew up, and I had another mid 20s finish. By the time I finished that event, I remember just thinking, okay, you blew your chance again. You went out there in these workouts that you totally crushed in training and blew it, and that's on you. But soon after that, I started getting these little glimpses of light. The first one came, after this event, I was scrolling on social media, and I'd seen a post by Nathan Bramblett, who was someone who was competing at the time in CrossFit, and he had posted James 1:2-4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. I remember reading that verse and being like, Tasia, it's not over. Okay, let's persevere through this. After that, I ran into Marcus Philly in the back. He was coaching one of my competitors, and I was kind of just joking around about how I blew my chance to qualify for the games. And I'll never forget, he said to me, "Don't forget that the weekend is barely half over." It really stuck with me because our brains can start spiraling. You have completely blown it. Your chance is over. So just throw in the towel. But with only 4 events down and then 3 to go, I had to stay consistent and keep going. Going into event 5 at the 2016 regionals was really a workout that was supposed to be damage control for me because it had running on the true form, heavy deadlifts, and GHDs. Both running and deadlifts are traditionally weaknesses of mine, but as I was working through the workout, I realized I was in a battle for first place. I remember at the final leg of my last run, my CrossFit 3 family was in the stands just chanting my name. I could hear them. They're like, Tasia, Tasia, Tasia. And I remember just smiling so big. And that gave me just this burst of energy. When I went up to that last set of deadlifts, I ended up going unbroken on the 7 to come in second place and just having this renewed fire and excitement to be there. I honestly went into day 3 with nothing to lose. I came in 4th on event 6 and then was 4 points out of a qualifying position. Instead of letting the pressure eat at me, I prayed. I prayed so much that weekend, each time asking God to let me shine through him. Before event 7, I remember praying so boldly, please let me shine, Lord. If it be in your will, let it be done. I knew I loved the event 7 workout. I had done it in training. I have always done really well at legless rope climbs. Those had been a strength of mine, and I was so excited to get out on the floor. You might not believe me, but I had envisioned this workout in my visualization exercises exactly as it happened. I remember having time to spare, in my visualization when I was working through the workout of how I'd, move through the sets, how I'd be moving through the bar, the rest I would take on my legless rope climbs, that I would have time to run through the finish and qualify to the games. And so meanwhile, in these visualization exercises that I had no idea that I would be in the position as far as 4 points out of qualifying. I just was visualizing myself qualifying out of event 7 to the CrossFit Games. I'll never forget going out so hot in that first set of thrusters and then coming off of that first set of 3 legless rope climbs and walking back to the bar and hearing the crowd roar. And that was the first time I think in my life that I had this experience of oh, these people are cheering for me. In the crowd, they're getting hyped for me. And coming off that last rope climb and running to the finish, it was just a moment that I will never, ever forget. The games in 2016 was a wild ride. It was a year where we competed over 5 days and flew to the ranch to compete in 3 events on Wednesday, the 7K trail run, the deadlift ladder, and then the wall ball GHD hill one workout. Our flight got delayed on the way back, and we barely had any sleep going into Thursday, where we had an ocean swim. After day 1 and 2, I was in a horrible placing. Running was a struggle for me. The 7K trail run, still to this day, is one of the hardest workouts I've ever done, mostly because if you watch the film back of it, I think I PR'd the first mile of a 7K, which is not what you want to do on a 7K run. Just being in so much pain, grinding out that workout, then going into a deadlift, which was weak for me, coming in poor placing there. I did well on the third event at the ranch, and then the swim was really just surviving it. I did the 500-meter ocean swim. I side stroked the entire thing, came in second to last, almost last. And so going into the weekend, I was pretty far down on the leaderboard. But with all my weaknesses out of the way, I was excited to start my climb. And so after top finishes in double DT, the heavy clean ladder, there was 100%, which was a D-ball over shoulder box jump workout. And then the separator, which who knew do so well at ring handstand push-ups, I really started to climb my way back up that leaderboard. By the time the weekend was over and I finished in 15th, I was pumped and even more excited to train for 2017. Then 2017 came and it was so rough. I got bronchitis during the open and didn't complete the open. Later, I tore my labrum in my shoulder, got a slap tear, and had to rehab it all summer. This would not seem like the ideal time to join the fittest team in the world, but looking back, I'm not surprised because God doesn't call the prepared. He prepares the called. One day in October, I got this DM from CrossFit Mayhem Freedom asking if I'd consider joining their team. When I first received the message, I was a little unsure because I had this passion to compete individual and I never even considered going team. But I remember thinking, okay, this is such a great opportunity that I should at least go out there and see what it's all about. I have nothing to lose. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to come try out for the team, see what that's like. By the time I got out there, I remember being put through one of the most brutal days of training. We went to the pool first. I could not swim at all. And by could not swim, I didn't even know that you were supposed to exhale into the water when you're swimming. So I'm having these mini panic attacks trying to keep up with these guys swimming. It was Rich, Matt Hewitt, Lindy Barber, Ellie was there. And so I'm trying to keep up with what's going on and just literally dying. From there, we went back to the gym. It was around Ellie's birthday. So we did Ellie's birthday workout, which had a bunch of burpees over the bar muscle ups. I remember just a high repetition workout. So I went through that. And then we ended up going back to the barn to do a handstand push-up, sandbag over the shoulder workout. And I remember just being there and praying that they liked me and that they would take me on the team. And by the time the weekend was over, they had offered me, it was Halloween, they offered me to join the team. And I said, heck yes, I'm in. And I moved 1 month later to be in Cookeville, Tennessee. In that month between when I said yes to CrossFit Mayhem and actually moving there, I had had a doctor's appointment to get my foot checked out because I had been having a lot of pain in my foot and found out that I had a stress fracture on the outside of my foot and a sesamoid fracture under my big toe in the same foot. I remember being so devastated. I cried, bawled right there in the doctor's office, trying to explain the situation to him, like, hey, I'm moving and going to be competing. I need to be able to run and jump and do all these things. And, he was honest about the fact that you have to be really careful with things like stress fractures because they can cause permanent injury and things where there are real risks if you keep running around and jumping on them. So he recommended a bone stimulator, and I had no money at this point. Literally, I was paying off that bone stimulator for years after. When I moved away, my mom had to help me pay that last month's rent because I was behind on rent. And luckily, I moved to CrossFit Mayhem, where I moved in with a vet and I wasn't paying rent there. And so that really helped me get through, as well as working for Blonix part-time, the supplement company. And then eventually I came on and started working at CrossFit Mayhem. But just remembering the sacrifice, the doubt, the confusion, leading up to going to CrossFit Mayhem, and then also just the hope of what was to come, and really having no idea what I was in for is kind of crazy to look back now. And so I think there is intention and purpose. I know there is, that God doesn't like reveal to us what's going to happen when we go somewhere. We have to step out in faith and step out in obedience and trust that He will continue to refine us and prepare us for the journey that we're on. And He really did just that. Joining Mayhem was such a gift. It stretched me, challenged me, and really helped me grow in my faith. It was the first time I was surrounded by a bunch of believers where we were talking regularly about the Bible, where people went to church, and I really wanted to know more. I wanted to be more of the conversation. Although I had a faith and believed in God, this was the first time I really started diving into studying God's Word. I'm not going to lie though, 2018 was so hard. I was navigating a new place, learning to swim, training with Rich, Lindy, and Hewitt. Every day felt like a test of my weaknesses. I used to joke that Rich programmed every workout just to crush me, but it was exactly what I needed. I worked harder that year than ever before in my life. And when we won the games in 2018, it was pure just relief. Now, contrasting that to 2019, that was the most fun year of my competitive life ever. It was the year of the super teams, and our training was super intense. So that year, the team was China, Dre, Rich, and I. And since China was in California at the time, Haley subbed in for China in a lot of our training sessions. And we trained together constantly that year. And Haley and I loved going head to head with the guys. There was so much laughter, but also so much hard work and so many ridiculous bets. You guys might remember the time I had to wear a Santa suit because Dre beat me in one of the open workouts. And then also Dre shaved his eyebrows that year. It was just wild. It was filled with so much chaos and so much joy. And getting to the CrossFit Games and competing there was truly a blast. We had spent so much time together training that it was almost like we could read each other's minds and what needed to happen next. Probably the most fun workouts were coming in, starting really solid like we always did, starting solid and confident, and then climbing through to come in the end and win those workouts. The final workout of the 2019 CrossFit Games is so funny because China and I, both of us claim that we're not very good at ring muscle ups, and somehow we come from behind. People start in other teams start failing ring muscle ups, some of the ladies, and we just come from behind and win the final workout. Was the perfect ending to the 2019 season and was just so amazing. After that, the training continued. We went and competed in Australia, then in London, and then at Wadapalooza in 2020, winning those competitions. And I didn't know it at the time, but Wadapalooza 2020 would be my last competition. It was kind of a perfect ending when I think about it because we won a swim event, which felt like redemption after all of the struggles I had been through with swimming and the fears I'd had to overcome in the pool and in open water. To win an event like that with elite teams just felt so cool. And so there was a lot of joy and excitement from the beginning of that 2020 season. But behind the scenes, I was struggling with health issues. Gut problems, fatigue, mood swings, sleep issues. In 2021, I decided to take the year off. I stopped doing CrossFit for a while and really focused on my health, prioritizing strength training, walking, and being Haley's sidekick as she trained for the CrossFit Games. I got to travel with Haley to the CrossFit Games as her support person in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2024. And honestly, watching her success and seeing all the hard work she put in behind the scenes, especially moments like when she hits that 185-pound snatch at the semifinals, those moments just bring so many tears to my eyes because it is something really special to be in a support role and cheer someone on. And yeah, those were some really special years for me. Haley is like a sister to me, and I'm still cheering that girl on as she continues to crush it at the CrossFit Games. Pretty early into that year off, I knew I wasn't going to be returning to competition. My health was improving. I'd met my future husband, and I was healing my own relationship with food and my body. But I'll be honest, transitioning out of competitive CrossFit is so hard. You go from people cheering for you, feeling like you have clear purpose, training 6 hours a day, to quietness, to wondering, who am I now without CrossFit? I tried to hold on to that high. I even started training for a marathon and ran a sub-4 marathon in February of 2023, an achievement that I'm so proud of. And so things were really moving up until I moved into another house with mold. At this time, my health unfortunately started to decline again. This was one of the most challenging years of my life. And I'll have to do a specific podcast on my mold story. But the reason that I made it through was just simply coming back to the Lord and laying it all at his feet. That process of transitioning out is a slow, refining growth process. I think this is part of the reason why athletes have such a hard time stepping away from competition, because your identity feels so secure and your purpose feels so filled in competing, and then when it's stripped away, it's almost like feels like a punch in the gut. But I thank God that he helped me to release that and step into something different, because what I'm doing now is my true purpose. And CrossFit was a piece of that, of building this company wonderfully made, and my experiences of the things that I went through, and going on my own healing journey to heal my relationship with food and body, and how God has been ever present in those struggles and in the healing. And so I thank the Lord for not answering that prayer, that I could come back to competing, and that he transitioned me into something different that I love even more. This quote has really stuck with me throughout the years. Just because it's close to your heart doesn't mean it's God's will for your life. Oof. We have to surrender it all to him, even our dreams and passions, to lay them at his feet. And the best part is, his ways are so much better. His ways are so much higher. His plan is greater and his timing is perfect. And so if we can surrender those things and be obedient to what he's calling us to, we know that it's going to be for our good and for his glory. So, what are my top 5 lessons from my CrossFit journey? 1, community is key. My favorite part about CrossFit has always been the people. The community is just different. Most of my lifelong friends have come from it, and I even met my husband through CrossFit. And honestly, if I see someone walking through the airport in Nanos, I feel instantly connected to them. It's a family. Number 2, winning won't satisfy you. If you're wondering what it's like to stand on top of a podium, it is fleeting. It's not what you think it is. The podium doesn't fill the void like you think it will. True peace and fulfillment can only come through Christ. And I had to really learn that the hard way, thinking about getting up onto the podium, thinking, okay, I've got it figured out. I've accomplished my goals. This is great. And then the next day, we're planning for the next season to try to win again. It's not what you think it is. And that's not to say it's not valuable to train for something to achieve these things, but just reminding you that fulfillment and satisfaction is only found in Christ. Number 3, sometimes obedience looks like laying it down. Sometimes obedience means slowing down, stepping away, or trusting God with what's next, even when it doesn't make sense. In 2020, I prayed so hard that he would heal my body so that I could compete again. I thought nothing else could ever feel as purposeful, but he showed me there's more. My life now may not look like amazing physical feats, but I've never felt more aligned with what I'm meant to be doing. Number 4, healing is layered. Healing isn't linear or quick. It's a process, one that God often used to draw us closer to him. Number 5, God uses every season. From injuries to mold sickness, from doubt to transition, he used it all. And if I could go back and change it, I wouldn't. Because through every season, God has been shaping me and preparing me for what's next. Okay, last thing. 5 fun facts to close it all out. My favorite CrossFit Games workout as an individual is double DT. And as a team was probably the big chipper in 2019. My least favorite movement is double unders. I've never liked double unders, and once I stopped competing in CrossFit, I stopped doing double unders. Mostly because my foot still is injured, but also that they're not really functional. So that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. But I don't love double unders and I still do singles. You can get a great workout in with singles. Do I have a pregame ritual? Honestly, the only pregame ritual I have is prayer. Let me share this one really cool story. Was at the 2016 regionals, I was praying before event one, just close my eyes, saying a simple prayer right before I went out, like while I was out on the floor on the starting mat and things were getting set to go. And so the first event of the 2016 regionals was a snatch ladder. I remember finishing that event and I'm signing my judge's card and the judge goes to me, "Were you praying at the beginning of that workout?" And I go, "Yeah, I was." And she goes, "I was praying for you too." And just something so meaningful and so impactful. I still remember it to this day. What is my favorite game day Bible verse? My favorite game day Bible verse is, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And I think that always helped me set my mind right on the day, no matter what happened, that this is a day that the Lord has made. Let me rejoice and be excited and go into this and be glad that I have this opportunity to be out here pursuing my passion, doing something I love, to be out on the floor was just so powerful. Lastly, quick advice for someone who might want to compete in CrossFit. Master good movement patterns and build a strong foundation. These things will take you further in your career than you can ever imagine. If you move well, you're going to last longer and get stronger and load more weight. And so it's so important to not rush to try to just put weight on the bar. That was something in the beginning of my journey when I moved to CrossFit Free. There was a heavy emphasis on my technical movements as far as snatching, cleaning, squatting, so that I could move in a way that would be more efficient and help me to last longer. And I'm so grateful for that time where I really did focus on that. And then throughout my career, continue to focus on getting good movement patterns in so that I could perform well. Looking back, I can see how God's hand was on every part of my CrossFit journey. The highs, the heartbreaks, the victories, and the healing. I'm so grateful I said yes to that very first partner competition and all that came after that. If you're listening today and you're in a season of transition, maybe stepping away from something that once defined you, know this: God is not done with your story. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually just a new beginning He's writing. Thanks for tuning into episode 7, my CrossFit journey. I love hearing your story, so please share your CrossFit memories with me in the comments. Until next time, my friends.